Hi, everyone. Welcome to webinar 29. Um, it's a new year, 2024. Last time you saw us was back in December, and that was our last video for the year. I think we talked about mastering product variants and how that could be useful for you if you have a store established or you're planning on having a store. Um, in the future. But there we kind of covered the topic of what it means to have a variant on your storefront and also what's the more convenient way to display your art products and things of the sort. So hopefully that was useful. I think going into the new year, we'll be covering different ranges of topics and also including different speakers. So we're really excited for the new year and new season of webinars. Of course, we would love to hear feedback through the Google Forms that I provide in the webinars each week. You're more than welcome to let us know if there's a topic you want us to cover that we have yet to cover. If you're wondering whether or not we covered a topic or not on these webinars, then you're more than welcome to check out our YouTube channel where we upload all our webinars, and there it's a more clean-cut version of what we have here, but there you're able to see the topics that we covered, such as integration, product highlights, and things of that sort. We also talk about things like we'll be talking about today, which is more business forward and helping you with your growing business. Um, we as a print company want to help you grow. And when you see that growth, also be prepared for, how much effort is going to be and how to optimize said effort into your business. Because we come across many, stories and talk to a lot of our customers who have success, and it's a matter of like how to then move from there when you start ramping up in customers. Are you able to, take on that large amount of orders on your own? Or are you finding yourself at a cusp where you need to start figuring out how to best leverage um, other resources into your business? So today we'll be covering that. And I know with the new year, that's when people tend to reflect on what to do for the future of their business or for the future of their careers for art. So hopefully after tuning in, you get a bit more insight. Again, as a print manufacturer, we see kind of part of that story, and we want to share some of the items that we learned and also provide you with some insight in that. So let's go ahead and just start with understanding business scaling and how it affects your print-on-demand business. Um, so I think going into the new year, as if you find yourself scaling your business, that means where you are growing at an exponential amount and your resources are pretty, minimal to the growth that you're, uh, you know, undergoing. That is very common with a lot of businesses that start early and start growing really rapidly. Um, Dealing with those changes and dealing with the new set demand can prove to be challenging and very exciting because, when who wouldn't be excited experiencing a lot of success with their stores? It's just a matter of keeping that momentum and making sure you're a bit more concise and a bit more careful with how you're going to move from there. Because, for example, some people we talk to might encounter that their previous vendor for or their previous print on demand manufacturer can't help with the scale, or they find themselves with the lack of help for customer service, or maybe the platform they're on is becoming very limiting for their profits. So hopefully, you know, when we go through some of the challenges, you might find some that you might have encountered, and we'll talk about solutions from there on. So let's get started. I have a little presentation which I'll kind of flip back and to from. So let me go ahead and share that. For the year 2024, I kind of want to talk about the current trends going on with how your business may be impacted and how you may encounter how other people within, your same line, that is wall art business and print on demand, how they are growing with their business and what current, you know, players are involved in that said growth or scaling. The first topic we have is automation and AI. Um, the automation and AI part is very much on the business and marketing efforts specifically. So we're talking about order fulfillment automation. We're talking about chatbot AI, and we're talking about analytics that might be, you know, integrated with your automation. This could also be things where your store is able to more, what's the word, is able to attune itself to your customer. And that leads into the next topic, which is personalized customer experience. So for the personalized customer experience, we're noticing that for a lot of stores, it's a matter of being very succinct and knowing who your customer is. One, and then the second thing about this is that you want to also kind of help your customer get from window shopping to actual purchase on your store. And it's things like, well, here's your browsing history. Based on your browsing history, this is what we think you'd like, kind of situation. If you ever shop for clothing on a website or you shopped on Amazon, these are very great examples of how personalizing the customer experience might work, where even something as simple as people who regularly buy this item also tend to buy this item. So by taking these small factors into consideration, you can harbor a more successful shopping experience for you and your customer. There are a lot of programs that help track your customers' navigation on your website, that is. It's a matter of also being transparent that you're tracking this said item. I know for the California at least, it is required by law that websites indicate that they are tracking you and your experience on the website. Of course, this is a grander discussion in matter of like how people bode well to this or not, but for the most part, it seems to be a positive experience for both ends. And as long as you're transparent, there shouldn't be an issue as long as your customer is well aware that their behavior or not behavior, but their tracking on your website is, recorded and such. But at the end of the day, it is also to help them find a product faster and better. So if you have a large array of products that you're selling on your website, that could be very helpful for you. Another item that people have been noticing a trend in is influencer marketing. I know when people hear that word, it's a very broad term. It's like, okay, well, I work with an influencer on social media and they endorse my product. But there's a bit more nuances to this, and to that degree, I think that there is a sort of curve at which marketing with influencers kind of has success and where it might be kind of not the most convenient. For example, we tend to see that niche or micro influencers are a bit more successful with actually selling your product. So if you are looking to collaborate with someone, first know your customer and then know whether or not the person you want to collaborate with is similar or caters to that said customer. An example could be if you have very ornate artwork or it's very decorative, then you want to work with someone who may have an aesthetic that bodes well with that and might have followers and people they interact with who enjoy that type of styling. You wouldn't want to just collaborate with anyone who does interior decoration because it might not be the same type of aesthetic, for example. Um, and then the bigger the influencer, one, the higher the rates because this isn't their first rodeo. They're gonna expect higher payments and things of that sort. Secondly, there's also kind of a drop in engagement once an influencer becomes a bit too popular. So say they have 200,000 followers, that might be great and all, and that might yield to a lot of customers and a large audience. However, you might not get a return in sales because only what 5% of their um, our audience saw the post or saw the video in which they're part of. Whereas if you work with a smaller or more niche influencer who has a big engagement, statistics, say about 20% of their followers see their posts or interact with them, then you're going to have a better yield and you're going to just have overall better, more succinct customers who might be more likely to purchase from you. Um, so even in the influencer marketing overall scheme, uh, into the year 2024, be a bit more decisive with who you're collaborating with, and specifically look into working with smaller creators who might not have the biggest following, but one of the good turnouts is that they might have great engagement and they also might have better rates as well. So keep that in mind. Um, as for video marketing, I think this is applicable to social media, website, shopping experiences, and things of that sort. People tend to engage more with videos than they do so with photos. You could check on how the trend is with, say, Instagram. Reels tend to pop up and be interactive more so than with photos. Even with photo posts that have video, those tend to have more interactions, say, compared to just photos as well. So I think if you're an artist who is in the business of, monetizing your prints, think about how you can create speed paints or how you can kind of engage the audience to fall in love with your artwork. And so that again could look like speed paints. It could look like, the process step by step. It could look like you are sending the package to your customer or a customer receiving your package. So there's a lot of ways to utilize video marketing. Even on your website, you can have video of what the canvas or what the print looks like by showing a quick video snippet on the homepage, or you can also do video kind of showcases of the art in a room. But all these little things that help kind of color the experience for your customer, it helps them visualize how the art can do in their house or their room, for example. But again, marketing is on the up and up. And as we see, even apps like TikTok kind of demonstrate that people are venturing more into engaging with video content. So consider forwarding your marketing efforts to that type of content. Speaking of, I think that a lot of times we want to create and curate our own, you know, video or content surrounding our products for ourselves as companies or as artists. Is we want to just show how we interpret the art or print. But for user-generated content, this is kind of relying on your customers or purchasers from your store to help create content, not just, for them to kind of share with their followers, but for you to also share with people who follow you as well. So, this could look like incentivized reviews. This could look like tagging you on Instagram or any other platform. But the idea is that you want to foster an environment where your purchasers or customers are inclined to create content for you. And this could look as simple as them taking pictures of the art that they arrived or them hanging the art that they purchase from your store onto their walls. It could look like them, talking about it. And again, ideally video, but photos are just as impactful in terms of kind of building trust with, new customers because I think a recent trend is that people tend to trust word of mouth or people who are not from said company, hearing their testimonies about their experience with your company. Say, your customer had a really great customer experience or customer service experience. Say they had an issue and you fixed it and they give you a compliment like, wow, thank you guys for helping me. This was great. I appreciate the service that you do and the print came out amazing. Then that's when you can ask, hey, can I post your testimony on my store, or can I post our interactions on my social media platforms? So it's the idea that you're coloring your website with more than just your own narrative, but with the narrative of others to kind of back up the legitimacy and the idea that other people also appreciate your store and it's not just you work making that content. But that's another trend that we've been seeing grow up and up. I think that whenever you're shopping online, one of the first things you do is run to the reviews and check to see if people had good experiences with said product or storefront. So, um, know how impactful that is when you're growing your business and that said customer or user generated content could also help you in turn because it's also testimonials to where you find people find most compelling about your store. And say there's a critique, then that could be definitely worth feedback that you can then integrate into your store and figure out how you can improve from there. Um, some challenges, and here are some solutions as well, but to go a bit more in depth about each topic, these are just some of the challenges and solutions, and it's not all encompassing, but I do want to go a bit into each of these. Um, Scaling too fast, I know that sounds kind of, odd when it means like, well, what do you mean? You're growing really fast at a rapid pace, and there's no negatives there. One of the negatives I think that you may encounter is that when you scale too fast, you don't have enough of the capacity to take on that load, say it's customers, say it's orders, or it's new products. You have to reevaluate where it is important to maintain customer satisfaction and to maintain the same quality you've retained since the beginning, and the reason why you're becoming, more successful in your business in the first place. So I know that when people tend to see rapid growth, they then get really excited and they're like, oh, well, if I'm getting a lot of customers, that means I need to provide more products. And if I need to provide more products, I need to work with more vendors. And I want to grab more customers and do this and that. I want to expand my marketing efforts. Those are all great things I think you should participate in. However, I think there should be moments within that time that you're experiencing a high growth or rapid growth, that you need to also take moments to reflect on how you can improve the current structure of your business. Because what can happen is that when you grow too fast, um, there might be points where your capacity does not uh, equal to the demand that is being asked of you or customers are asking of you. So, again, take a moment, take a breather if need be, and you need to figure out, okay, well, I'm getting a lot of customer inquiries. Do I need three new customer service representatives, or do I need to do training? These are some considerations to take into mind. And I think when you're scaling, you also don't want to grow too fast and not have the structural integrity in your business. That is, you don't have a vendor that could, manage the capacity, or you don't have apps that can help you with your order management. And the last thing you want to do is overextend yourself and lose customers because you weren't able to meet the demands. So scaling too fast is a thing. Oftentimes, it could be a multitude of factors, but sometimes the speed at which you grow is exciting, but you also need to kind of keep in mind of what you need to uh, focus on, which is into the next point, which is losing focus on the company needs. This is a challenge that companies tend to have at the beginning because, again, everything's so new and it's so exciting. At the same time, however, you don't want to lose sight of what got you there in the first place. Two questions you should be asking yourself is, what has worked for the company so far that has made us successful? And then another thing is, what do our customers feel about our company, or what are some things we can do to help address any of our customers' concerns? Um, if you have a or if you have a focus on your customers' feedback and a focus on what has worked so far, I think it will help you keep kind of a bigger picture insight on your company, because as soon as you start kind of gravitating towards smaller details about your company's growth and how you can continue growing it, um, it might distract you from the bigger picture at large. Another thing that I feel like a lot of rapid scaling companies experience is that you might be the only person who's running your company. And say you are the customer service rep, you're the order fulfillment person, you're the person who interacts with customers on social media, you make content, you're making art. Things of that nature is very taxing, even for one person, and especially as you grow bigger and bigger. Um, at which point, whether it's someone you trust or hiring talent that you can integrate into your team, or if you already have a team, start giving those decisions and tasks to them, and it's gonna, in the long run, help you tremendously. Because if you're not giving responsibilities or decision-making uh, positions to other people who may be on your team, it might result in one, a team that doesn't execute their own, projects well, and two, it might result in the bottlenecking issue where a lot of things need to be done, but you're the only problem solver in the company, and that might hinder your scaling or your growth. And so just keep in mind, is there a lot of things going on in a growing company? Yes. Are you able to manage it all on your own? Think about that. One thing is that there's a lot of things that can help you scale your business, but you yourself as a person are not scalable. So be gentle on yourself and know what are your limitations, as one person can handle in a business, and one person cannot handle a growing high, volume business. At a certain point in time, you're going to have to rely on other partners or people that you have on your team to help you with those decisions and help you with other big tasks that are going to only benefit your company. So keep that in mind. Um, some ways that we can help, or some ways that can be helped with a growing company, I think order management systems are a great thing to utilize, especially if you're planning or are using multiple vendors for different products. Say you sell stationery, you sell wall art, you sell kitchenware, things of that sort. If you have a lot of these things going on, it could get overwhelming really fast, in which case you can lend yourself to having an order management system. Order is a great example. That's usually on some platforms, but the idea is that you can help you fulfill those orders without thinking too much about it. So the fact that it's automated means that it could do the work for you, and you don't have to, be so worried about human error with misorders or, you know, um, orders that aren't fulfilled properly or at all. Um, just make sure you're always checking in with your automation systems or programs or apps or what have you, making sure that things are flowing smoothly. Of course, technology is not foolproof. There are going to be times where you need to keep an eye on them, but at least with an order management system, it's going to be very helpful in the long run, especially if you're getting tens, dozens of orders each day. Um, Another part of automation is, and it could also, this is kind of a marketing and streamlining process for your scaling, but it's offering rewards for repeat purchases and referrals. So it's about optimizing your current customer base. And by that, I mean, if you have a customer that purchased from your store once, they might be more inclined to buy again. And so, how are you going to be encouraging that process to happen and transpire? There are a lot of discount and coupon and other apps that help you like automatically, kick off a coupon. Say a customer makes a really large purchase. Well, here's a coupon to encourage them to make a secondary purchase in the future. If they really enjoyed your product and left a great review, let that be a kind of point in which it ticks off and goes to customers' email that there's a referral code they can use should they want to share the store with someone else if they had a positive experience. Um, and then, of course, with optimizing your scaling business, I think it's worth considering outsourcing your fulfillment. I know some people that come to us are usually at that stage where they're ready to start fulfilling outside of their own capacity. And so they realize, okay, well, I'm getting a lot of orders and I'm printing from home, but my one printer is not sufficient enough to handle all the orders. I go to Lumaprints to start handling those multitudes of orders each day. That's just one small example. Um, I think another example could definitely be, say, you're going global with your orders. It's great to work with vendors who are local to that said place you want to target. Say you want to target Europe, or you want to target Africa, or you want to target East Asia. These different continental areas have their own fulfillment areas, and I think it's best to do that way, because what happens is if you have a partner that outsources a partner that does your product, but they ship from one country to another, then you have to deal with all the international costs that come along with that. And it's not ideal because even on the waters, shipments get lost, things happen, packages get wet. It's not ideal. So making sure that when you are outsourcing and going global, that you're working with partners whom you trust and have a good relation and rapport with, and that they are local or at least local to the continent. That's just one recommendation. And if you're going to expand on your product variation, say it's you feel like it's, apt and people are asking for it, then you should, go ahead and start offering other products as so long as it's, something you can manage with the current orders. But these are some things that can help you continue growing the product lineup and diversifying it. And that could, again, only lead to you figuring out what works for your company and what doesn't work. Um, I think that talking about a lot of improvements you can make, I think that and lending yourself to other people for help and also to make sure that you're not overexerting yourself. I think one of the most strategic partnerships you can have for your growing store is working with other artists and graphic designers to help you with your website and or with your products. So say you do animals as a main art focus, for example. Um, it's not so bad to collaborate with other artists on said efforts, and royalties, a percentage of each sale could go to them. But what's happening is that you're able to then focus on your business while painting or drawing or designing it as well, but also relying on other people to create that content should you feel like the demand for new art is ever growing and you're not able to keep up with it. A lot of people do this. Big companies tend to do this. They tend to rely on other artists or graphic designers to help them with their content create or their product creation. And again, it's working out some specific business relations with them. It could look like royalties, it could look like base costs to have the rights to their art. But the idea is that you're fostering a capability where you can continue growing without having to overexert yourself, especially as an artist. I know that for some artists, they can produce a lot of works, but then there are those who may have art blocks or they might like the idea of producing art, but at that point in time, it might be convenient for them. And so that's one of the main partnerships I think is a really good endeavor to take into consideration, especially if you notice yourself growing and growing and growing and you feel like you can't draw or keep up artistically with that demand. So keep that in mind. Brand and merchandisers, again, if you ever work with companies who have a certain look and appeal to their company and an aesthetic, I think that it's worth considering if it bodes well with your art to reach out to them and say, hey, this is my artwork, this is the products I offer. Having your brand on this said product would look great. And so think about those things. Think about how, let's say, if someone sells mugs and that's their main enterprise, and you notice a lot of the designs you see on their website could probably look similar or are compatible with the art you sell, then it's worth saying, hey, this is my art, and if you would like, we could figure out a partnership. And it's about utilizing the current designs you have and kind of making sure you're monetizing them to the full effect in ways that make sense, of course. Um, and it's being strategic with who you collaborate with and who you feel like is a brand that makes sense and feel like the merchandise itself would go well with your art. So say you do more graphic design focused pieces, then what is to say you can't collaborate with journal producers or um, even wallpaper makers and things of that sort. So again, current art that you have can also be expanded and monetized as well. Um, Print manufacturers are another partnership you should consider. Lumaprints is one of them, of course. But the idea is that you're working with manufacturers who, one, do the art well, and two, could help you kind of figure out what art might work best for you. So there are different types of print manufacturers, those who just do paper prints, those who just do metals, people who are manufacturers who just do a specific type of canvas. Um, and of course, there's people like Lumaprints who also do various different types of products. But the idea is that you're working closely with them to one, make sure your products are good and they are color matched and the quality is good. I think with print manufacturers in general, things to look out for is making sure they use genuine inks and genuine printers. If you ever had fulfillment done from another company and it wasn't a good experience, say the colors weren't matching or the quality of the print file or the print itself looked kind of blurry, even though your print file was very high in resolution, then that might be a cause for concern. Um, you really have to weed out those who don't use the best of the best in terms of um, printers and inks. So always test, always ask for samples, always have a conversation with your manufacturer. Once you start reaching the high scale that you are, it's important that you have these well-established relationships with your printers. And that goes for most partnerships as well. Say it's an app that helps you with order management, or say it's an artist that you work with, you do want to make sure you're on a not day to day, but at least a well-established relation with said partners. Okay, and then we're going into the more of the marketing efforts here. So um, this is just anecdotal, just as kind of a quick pause here. But I think that one of the things that people tend to like, at least what I've noticed with some of the bigger accounts that we work with here at Lumaprints, is that when it comes to marketing, a lot of people might not know how to utilize it, but I think it's very important to kind of learn up on it as an artist who's looking to scale at a high growth or wants to profit from their works more so than they are at the moment. If you aren't utilizing marketing, consider that. The artists that we have worked with who do invest in marketing efforts, say it's paying for Google ads or social media ads or interacting with sponsorships and things of that sort with customers, they tend to be the ones who are the more high profiting customers. And we talk to them and they're very open about their kind of growth and what they saw worked for them. And, we would ask, like, oh, we noticed a really big uptick in your sales. It's, first off, congrats, but secondly, how do you guys do it? And oftentimes one of the biggest notes that they make is that, well, as we're growing, we wanted to, you know, figure out how to find our customer, and finding their customer was through very succinct ads or ads that are very targeted. Um, with targeted ads that can be on social media, on Google, or other platforms such as events and things of that sort. I think that the bigger customers we tend to see are the ones who do invest in marketing. So if you're growing and growing and you're trying to figure out what the next step is, or if you're noticing yourself reaching a plateau, it's worth considering putting marketing efforts into your business model, because those are the people who tend to stick out from the rest in terms of the growth and at the rate at which they grow. Um, Again, this is actually putting monetized effort into it, and it's not just posting on social media. It's kind of the next step in for a lot of businesses. And again, that could look like sponsorships, it could look like Google ads, and it could look like social media ads as well. And we could talk a bit more specifically about that. One thing to keep in mind, though, is that this is people who work specifically on targeted ads, and that tends to work the best. And the idea is that, with the website being so, or with the internet being so wide and all-encompassing, casting your net out there, you need to be very precise, because you can spend a lot of money on Google Ads or social media posts and have it shared to a large audience. It's a matter of whether or not you're utilizing those tools that a lot of these advertisement platforms have to make sure that the net that you're casting is very succinct and very direct to the customer that will be most likely to purchase from you. So People who tend to struggle with marketing investments are people who don't go into specifics for their ads and just say, well, I just want to share it with 1,000 people on Facebook. And that might not be, useful and it might grab a couple people, but you want to be very specific. You want to be like, oh, well, I want to capture people within this demographic of age 18 to 24, specifically from this region, because people from this region tend to bud well with my art. Say it's coastal, then you want to target people who tend to live on the coast or who would have more nautical themes in their household to begin with. Um, so it's a two-handed scenario because you have to know your customer before you start advertising. And if you don't know your customer yet, then how can you figure out your customer? And that usually could be done with their purchase history, kind of gaining an idea of where they're from, say Midwest, East Coast, West Coast, things of that sort. So looking at your customers, and seeing the current customer base that you have, how can you then reach out to more people who are like your current customers? Okay. And so let's go back to the presentation. I just want to kind of talk about that real quick. Let's see. Give me one moment. And so I kind of generally covered these topics, but some things that you can do for targeted marketing efforts is seasonal and trend-based campaigns. This in particular, for seasonal is like if your art is lended towards gift giving ideas, say you do custom art, for example, um, things to look out for, Mother's Day, Valentine's Day, Christmas, um, and things of that sort. How are you able to make your art a bit more gift centric so people have that idea in mind when they go see your product, either through ads or through posts? So being very intentional with like, oh, well, here is the purpose for which this art is here for. Because one of the things for things like art, they might not seem as a need, but what you want to do is make sure your customer feels a strong enough want to where they feel like they need your art, say for the purpose of a gift or even for the purpose of decorating their home, say during that time of year. So, in the fall when people tend to prepare their homes for gatherings and things of that sort. How are you lending your art to then decorate their home? So there it is a broad topic, but those are just some examples. Trend-based campaigns are also very potent and very strong. So this requires you to be very attuned to what your average customer might be consuming online and also making sure you know what the next best thing is where you could acquire a different audience base, if you will. So I think before I just mentioned in passing how there could be maximalist art decorators. I think that's a current big thing on TikTok, for example, where maximalism is in and people really love a very decorative home. Say your art style lends to that, then how can you make sure that your art is being captured in that said trend via video content or what have you? But the idea is that you're attuned to the trends that are going on and you are able to then leverage your art when it's relevant. So not every trend is going to be for you, but if there is a trend that you could find yourself kind of being compatible with, then it requires rapid fire reaction because so, as we know, trends online could go really fast, but some do tend to stay longer. So even with the faster and longer trends, it's worth still investing time and content into those. Um, Retargeting campaigns is a very interesting one, and I think it's very useful. Um, this is the kind of campaigns where you will see, like, say you're shopping on a website and you look at a couple products, but you're not 100% sure if you want them, so you leave the website. Then this could trigger for the website, like, oh, this person left a couple things in their cart. Let's remind them in a couple of days so they have our products in mind. Say they're still window shopping elsewhere, but they're not getting much. So in a couple days' time, you could notify this said customer, hey, you left some items in your cart, want to complete your purchase, or are you still interested? It's things like that that you can do that could help leverage, you know, the current customers or the current visitors of your website and making sure that the success at which they actually end up in the shopping cart and check out. So it's redirecting campaigns like that that could be very useful. As for social media advertising, again, kind of restating some other stuff, but working with smaller content creators is fantastic. And then, of course, working with your own customer base or followers who love your products already, who might be inclined to talk about them or post about them. How are you, you know, giving them an incentive to do so? So for users who, bought your art before, make sure that, hey, if they really liked it or left a compliment, can you leave that on Instagram or can you let people know on Facebook? I'd really appreciate it. And it's just good at building a good rapport with your said customer base. As long as you're genuine and you're not trying to, incentivize them in a non-genuine way. Most people know that you're a person at the end of the day who's trying to monetize in your art, and people tend to bode well with people who are small artists or people who own small storefronts. They're more likely to support you than anyone else. So, um, asking for them to post about you is not so out of the ordinary, and nor should it be looked down upon. More likely than not, either they don't post it or they're inclined to post it. So it's worth going into there and investing in interacting with your customers in that regard for user-generated content. Um, but going back to the marketing aspect of social media, this is just some data I decided to share with you guys. And it's the idea that a lot of advertisement is being spent on social media, and that's kind of the place to be if you do want to start somewhere in terms of marketing or scaling your business using marketing funds or investments. Um, and it also depends, again, on you being very intentional with your marketing efforts. It's one thing to just share an ad about your product, but it's another thing to know which platform works for your art, which place will have your target audience, and then how can your ad bode well to the target audience you have in mind. Um, in the year 2020 alone, or sorry, 2022, um, almost 550 billion were spent in advertisement on social media alone, and we're only seeing growth from there. Um, just kind of as a side, the places to be is definitely Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and for the most part, X, formerly known as Twitter, is not the best place. That's kind of a very interesting place in general. If you advertise on there, great, and if it works for you, fantastic. I just know with a lot of changes going on, if you're a user on Twitter, you probably know it is kind of a wild west out there because of all the changes that are being made by the company head. Um, and a lot of companies, unfortunately, are pulling out and they're not seeing a lot of growth there. Um, so keep that in mind. Be a bit wary of where you're going to put your ads on. Make sure that it's a website that you feel like, okay, well, my customer is going to be here and or my potential customer is going to be here and they're going to be interacting with um, the things they see online here. For some people, they might feel more inclined to purchase something they saw on TikTok more so than they do on Facebook, if that's your customer in particular. So be mindful of that. You need to get in the mind of who will purchase your art and figure out from there what type of social media habits they have and kind of lending yourself to that. Say they're more inclined to interact with a sentimental post, or are they more inclined to interact with a storefront like landscape on a social media platform? Like we talked about, there are shops that exist within platforms now that allow people to more easily look through a person's catalog on social media. So figuring out what works for your customer and for you is worth taking into consideration. And as we see in years going up and up, you're going to see more ad spending. And these are the type of people who are growing at a big scale. Um, so keep that in mind. I think that's about it. Let me just go back here. Okay. I think that's about it. I think I'll be answering some questions now. Let's see. Okay, so we do have a question from Vox Productions. Do you guys plan to support making multiple versions of the same image, such as a 4x5 and 8x10 at once? Um, so if I understand your question correctly, you want to figure out how you can use the same image to make different variants or different sizes. In which case you can use the same image for the same product or for different sizes. It's a matter of starting with the biggest size you have for an image. Say your image is from 24 by 36, and then from 24 by 36 is 12 by 18 and smaller. You want to start with a print file or a print of an image file that starts at 24 by 18. And as it gets smaller, it's a lot easier for our program to then have that and resize to that size. Um, so that might look like you just making sure your file is a high resolution and that it looks well when it is downsized. Sometimes when things are sized so small, it can see a bit of pixelation or compression. So be mindful of that. But for the most part, you can start with a big image file and use that same image file for smaller images. Hopefully that's helpful for you. If you do experience issues with that, let me know. Or let our customer service team know. But for the most part, you're allowed to use the same image file without having to edit it, unless, of course, you get to a different aspect ratio. What is the most favorite aspect ratio for your company? I have a lot of 4x5. Is there a better ratio? I think 4x5 isn't bad. That's a very square rectangle, if that makes sense. For most households, they either like squares or more defined rectangles, like what you see here as just a general example. So aspect ratios we tend to see very popular are 3x4s, 3/4, um, 2/3, and squares, of course, 1x1s. Um, and then depending on your customer and depending on your art, of course, some ratios might even go panoramic. So think about where your customer might hang that artwork. If it's over a sofa, then a panoramic might make sense for them. If they're an eclectic buyer, then square, more rectangular art piece or square art piece might work for them. So keep that in mind. Of course, if you have more questions about aspect ratios, we do have some videos on that, and we talk all about aspect ratios and what works and how to also make sure your artwork is sized properly for smaller sizes, as long as you use the right aspect ratio. Um, Ivan asked, do you guys plan on selling jigsaw puzzles in your range of products? Not at the moment. We're not planning on doing that. Of course, that doesn't mean we won't work on it. We are always on product development and we work with big brick and mortar stores and creating new products. I think one of the more recent adventures that we had, if you saw our Vegas market, was that we did tote bags for the summer market in Las Vegas. That was very successful for us in terms of people loving the tote bags. So we kind of made it a product by working with vendors. But that's still in development, and that's just for very specific collaborations. In terms of what we manufacture here, we're just currently manufacturing art prints that go onto paper prints, canvas, peel and stick, and metals. So thank you for the question, but we'll look into it. So thank you for that question. Let's see. What is the most underrated piece of advice you wish people would ask about more that you're passionate about to share? Um, in terms of the company, I really love talking about the mockups and how to make your products look good on websites. Um, of course, we did a whole webinar on that too, where we talked about mockups and how you can customize that mockup. I know for some customers, they might not have Photoshop what's the word, Photoshop skills, or they might not be familiar with it. They might be kind of intimidated because it is a program that not all people use. But if you have some knowledge on it, I love talking about how you can make a very personalized mockup, how you can then curate your website and website design. Those have always been personal passions of mine. And in terms of advice for those, I think that if you're passionate about the aesthetic of your art, then you should be passionate about the website aesthetic overall and making sure that your website bodes well with your own art. So thinking about your website as an art piece in of itself and making sure when you're providing a website for your customers, they kind of understand who you are as an artist. The last thing you want to do is have a very bare bones website, but your art is so intricate and beautiful. Um, oh, awesome. It's cool that you're learning about new stuff and trends with mockups and things. Um, Also, it is one of those no cost kind of efforts you can make into your website is just putting effort into mockups and the look and aesthetics of your website. So great to hear that, Vox Productions. It's great to see that. We did get some submitted questions from our Google Forms, so I kind of want to cover those. Here's a question from Jack. How can I integrate Lumaprints into my Shopify? I've been an artist for 8 years, and prints are going to be my first foray into monetizing. Would love an explanation on how to integrate and what works and how the print on demand service works. I also realize this may be explained in the webinar. Not this webinar in particular, Jack, but in an earlier webinar, we did talk about integration at length. And so that is going to be webinar 13. So if you go onto YouTube, our 13th webinar should be the one that will answer all your questions. And should there be something that we haven't covered there, then our customer service team is awesome and they will help you in any way they can. We have a great team here that can help people with integration should the video not be sufficient enough. But great to hear that you're interested in integrating and monetizing your art. We got a question from Eileen who asked if there was tips for great mockups and photos. So I just kind of want to, I did prepare a little something just to kind of showcase um, what might work for your mockups, just to compare and contrast. So give me one moment. So here we have two mockups, and I kind of want to use this visual as a kind of walkthrough to what works and what doesn't work. As you can see on the left side where the sofa is, here we have a really clear, crisp photo of the artwork here. Um, Things to note and things to keep in mind and take notes on. The art print itself is clear. It's pretty true to color. There's no oversaturated filter on this. I think that the lighting is really good and it's natural. And importantly, it looks like it's part of that feature. It looks part of that interior design. So it bodes well in a lot of facts. You feel like everything is harmonious because it is. The artwork makes sense in this space. And so I think all of these things in mind are really great. Another thing to take into consideration is that it's well decorated. You don't want clutter and you don't want the image to look dated. So making sure you're working with um, furniture and models that look very modern or make sense with your artwork. Whereas on the right side, I could kind of make some notes. No fault at this person here who made this. This is just kind of to point out where the challenges might be for this mock-up. Um, One of the things to note about is the lamp that's in the front of the image. It's going to deter and distract from the customer interested in the artwork in the first place. So as you can see here, the lamp is a bit too in front. It would have been better if it's more to the left or to the right away from the image, but not in front. Another thing is that the furniture here is not the best. I think they were going for a rustic look, but one, it doesn't bode well with the image. Two, the furnishing is not the best in general. And even some of it is blocking it yet again. So this little piece here, while it's cute, this little desk add-on, it might not look great because it's obscuring your image right here. Notice that the assets that are in here aren't well integrated. So this easel and these chairs here don't look like they're part of the environment. Um, Again, these are all factors that won't bode well for your mockups. So these are kind of like the do's and don'ts. So here is definitely like a don't. Don't obstruct your image. Don't put in furnishings that look clearly photoshopped in. If you are going to Photoshop some things into the image, make sure they're color corrected and they match the overall vibe of your image. If you're not familiar with Photoshop or your knowledge of it is very minimal, consider having a pre-made mockup set up for you where you just have to import the image and you're good to go. Um, if you if you don't know, we do have mockups available on our website for art, such as paper prints and framed paper print specifically, and canvas and framed canvas. So if you're kind of not sure where to go for mockups, just go to our website and we offer that as a free asset that you can utilize. Um, and those have clean interior backgrounds. Those are pretty cut and dry and they're easy to use. So don't feel so overwhelmed if you feel like you can't create your own mockups. We have our own template that you could easily use. So that I just wanted to share quickly with you guys. Let's see. Yep. Um, As for mockups, I definitely recommend RGB. RGB tends to be the most useful ones for online and website designs. CMYK might come off in the wrong colors. It might come off purpley or green if you're not careful. You also want to make sure that it's Adobe RGB for general prints, but for mockups, RGB is just kind of the way to go. For the most part. I only see CMYK for specific type of printers or specific type of things you want to do in Photoshop. Um, but within the realm of online spaces, RGB. And then we have a question from Boris. Do you have stats on which platforms your customers are using the most? Etsy, Shopify, WooCommerce, etc. So great question. I actually asked some people around in our team. At the moment, we don't have that knowledge. However, it would be great if we actually start compiling that. So maybe in the next meeting or a couple meetings from now, I could actually provide that insight because I know for some customers, they like seeing what other customers are doing and what works for them and apply it to themselves. Anecdotally, though, we did ask some of the CS members, and they said that for the most part, most people tend to do their own standalone stores. So whenever they're looking for integration in Shopify, WooCommerce, Wix, and Squarespace. So those are some of the websites people are more keen to. Um, Less so with platforms like Amazon and Etsy. Not to say that we can't integrate with them, but it seems like that tends to be the customers that we don't see as much of in comparison to people who have standalone e-commerce websites. Um, so I think that's about it. Of course, if you have any questions, let me know. Otherwise, we can complete this meeting. It was great talking to you guys. Hopefully this website or this webinar, not website, this webinar was useful for you guys. Appreciate all the questions that were asked. And next week, we'll talk more in depth about other business endeavors and hopefully we'll see you then. If there are no questions, I will see you next week. So bye.